Today we're taking a look at some terrible Twilight clones, but before we get started, I just want to break down my criteria of what I think makes a Twilight clone and why these three movies meet that criteria. We're going pretty basic with it. It's not going to be a play-by-play, but it's going to be the basic premise. A completely normal person meets a very strange but attractive person at their school. The normie and the weirdo hit it off really well, and then they inevitably fall in love. Despite being blinded by love, the normal person begins to notice that the weirdo is extra weird and comes to the conclusion that they must be some kind of storybook being. In this video, we're covering vampires, witches, and angels, so I've broadened the horizon beyond the Twilight-only vampire and werewolf mythos. The normal person does end up being fine with their whole worldview being blown right open, and they choose to stay with the weird person despite whatever taboo or curse or coven rule that says that they shouldn't do that. And then the movies will all have terrible and awkward dialogue and the most basic of storylines that tend to ignore all of their plots just to focus on awkward teenage romance, and the message, of course, that love conquers all. So now that we're all on the same page, don't forget to like and subscribe if you do enjoy this video, and let's just hop right into the first one. The Last Vampire on Earth. This one is such a treat. It's the epitome of a Twilight clone. We've got a high school town, the most pumpkin spice latte drinkinest leading lady named Chloe, and a pale, creepy love interest who definitely has something to hide, named Aurelius. This movie also assaults your sense of sight with its dark and shadowy filter that kind of makes everything look like there's a fine layer of Vaseline just rubbed all over the camera lens. You kind of get used to it, but it always looks like this. It never gets better. So to start the plot, there's an end-of-year project that Chloe's class is having to do where they have to read and perform Bram Stoker's Dracula. The professor hands out parts to the students and, you guessed it, Aurelius gets to play the part of Dracula, and Chloe gets to play the part of Mina, who is the leading lady in Dracula. But it doesn't really matter. We do see a lot of this play, like a surprising amount of this play, but it doesn't matter for the story at all. It's just to get these two introduced to each other.
Personally, I'm thrilled about this. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
After school, Aurelius meets with this blood donation guy named Dwayne, and here starts some of the greatest line readings of all time. The way that Aurelius talks is pure gold. He's trying to sound like cool and edgy, but he always comes across so lame. It's perfect. And every single line that he speaks just immediately made me burst out laughing.
Well, I'd like to buy some of this blood from you.
You know, that's rich, kid. If you're not gonna donate, get out of my face.
I'm very serious, Wayne. That would be just the first installment.
The movie tries to emphasize that Aurelius is, like, big-time rich, so don't worry, because that $17 that he threw at Wayne is only a drop in his financial bucket. Plenty more where that came from, Wayne. You'll be taken care of for a long, long time if you keep up this good work. Chloe and Aurelius finally meet in the library, and their introduction is... it couldn't be better. It just couldn't be better.
Hey, Aurelius, right? You're in my lit class?
Oh, yeah. What's your name again?
Chloe.
They exchange numbers and decide to get together sometime to practice their scenes.
So, I noticed we have a couple scenes together. Do you want to get together sometime and go over them?
Sure. Here. Put your number in my phone. I'll text you when I'm available.
Chloe also has to go to the doctor to get some blood work done, and this is kind of important moving forward, so just keep it in mind. I don't want to give anything away quite yet. The next day, they get together at a coffee shop, and it's so strange because Aurelius doesn't get anything to eat or drink. He deflects all his suspicions away with small talk and asks Chloe what her major is going to be. We do find out that Chloe and her family are super religious, and she's getting a degree in cultural anthropology so that she can be a missionary someday. So, what do you think of that, Aurelius?
That's cool. I really admire people who could be so selfless.
Aurelius also shares that he's majoring in hematology, which is the study of blood, so That's so subtle. It's so subtle.
Well, I'd like to try and help find cures for blood diseases that are really stumping scientists, like diabetes and AIDS.
Wow, that's amazing.
To finish up their get-together, Chloe invites Aurelius to go to church with her, and he's happy to agree. The people that they got to act in the church all look really miserable, so great job. Very accurate. After the service, Chloe introduces Aurelius to her dad, so things are getting serious.
It was very nice, sir. I enjoyed it a lot.
Please call me Melvin.
Okay, sir. I mean, Melvin.
Melvin invites Aurelius over for dinner the next night, so I guess things maybe really are getting serious. At the dinner, we meet Chloe's little brother, who definitely just doesn't want to be there. They all share some more small talk, and Aurelius shares his future interests with the family.
Basically, I want to work in helping find cures for blood diseases like AIDS and diabetes.
But talking about blood is apparently a sore spot in the family, as the dad says that their religion doesn't allow blood transfusions or consumption of any kind.
If we were to do so, we would be shunned from the church.
I see.
Aurelius does eat a little bit, but on his way home he throws up out of his window because he's a vampire. All right, like there's no real mystery. The movie's trying to be a little bit mysterious. This one is like the most pure Twilight clone, just pure ripoff that it could be. He's a vampire, all right? Wayne ends up coming over to Aurelius' house with the blood, and then he leaves.
If you need anything, let me know. Just holler.
Will do. Good night, Wayne.
Good night.
And the next day, Aurelius meets Chloe in the park.
Oh, hey, I'm just doing a bit of recreational reading.
They talk some more, and they start to get closer, and then they go for a walk, and they hold hands, and it's all cute and stuff. And then they wash Chloe's face at a spigot, and it's like super romantic, you know? And in the end, Aurelius comes up with this banger to get Chloe to come over to his place.
I found some notes for class. I printed them out online. After this, do you want to go with me to my house to get them?
Well, yeah, sure. What are they about exactly?
Just different theories and information about vampires. Thought it might help you with the project.
Chloe ends up finding the blood stash, but nothing really comes from it. I think it's just to like help build her suspicions a little bit. And then Aurelius gives her the notes, and then she leaves. But while she's studying that night, she does start to realize that all of these odd coincidences are happening, and then she's able to connect everything with Aurelius being Dracula, and the next day she confronts him.
Hematology, pale skin, cold hands, the colors of blood in your house. Your house.
So tell me, what did you figure out? What did I want you to know?
That you're
Say it.
a vampire.
Yes.
We find out that Aurelius is over 2,000 years old, so of course, Chloe has to ask the most important question.
Did you see Jesus?
I heard him speak a couple of times. He was a great man.
That's amazing. I'm so jealous.
Guys, this guy heard Jesus speak. He met Jesus. This guy was around for Jesus' time. Oh my gosh, I love this movie. I love this movie so much. Just after finding out, we hard cut to Chloe throwing up and then passing out. And it's not because she just found out that vampires are real. It turns out that she just had a bad reaction to some new medication for her mysterious condition that she has. But then we hard cut again, and she's just fine, and she's just chatting with her friends. A few days, or maybe a few weeks pass, I'm not really sure, but Chloe and Aurelius are getting along great. They're smooching, and they're holding each other, but Chloe still hasn't fully recovered, I guess, so she's constantly, sometimes kind of sick. Chloe's folks invite Aurelius over for another dinner, but Chad, the younger brother, his name is Chad, he eavesdrops on Chloe and Aurelius talking, and he hears them mention that Aurelius is a vampire. And then nothing comes of this quite yet, but the seeds of suspicion are planted, and it's gonna get bad. Uh-oh. Somehow, this movie just keeps getting better and better because when Aurelius goes home, he sets up the ping pong table and he plays it by himself. I can't believe this movie. Dude, it's so good. It kills me. One day, Chloe does notice some bruising on her back and she goes to meet with her doctor and we find out what her mysterious condition is and it's progressing, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. Not yet. I'm saving it for a special moment, alright? It's gonna be good. You're gonna love it. We do also see Chad go to his parents, and he tells them that Aurelius is a vampire. Chloe's dad believes Chad, I guess, and he rushes over to Chloe's dorm room and he asks her if it's all true, and she doesn't deny it for some reason. And then he says that he's going to go and take care of him because vampires are evil.
What are you gonna do?
What needs to be done?
Chloe tries to call Aurelius, but his phone just goes to voicemail, and before going over to his house, she stops by her home and she grabs a gun. She then drives around the whole town, but she can't find Aurelius anywhere. When she finally ends up going to the church, she does hear some commotion going on in the woods, and she finds Aurelius all tied up to a pyre and surrounded by her family and a few random fellow church people, and they plan to kill him right there and then. But Chloe is here to take some action, and here you go. I'm just gonna let this whole thing play, and I mean, enjoy some of the best cinema you'll probably ever see in your whole life.
Stop or I'll shoot. This is a good man, and if you took the time to get to know him, you would find that out. He doesn't want to hurt us. He doesn't feed off of humans. He wants to help us. He wants to help find cures for diseases. He wants to help find a cure for diseases like AIDS. Maybe that doesn't mean much to you, but it means a lot to people like me who have it. That's right, I have AIDS and it's advancing very quickly. I don't have that much longer to live, and I will not hesitate to shoot someone for trying to kill Aurelius. I'm not afraid of punishment, death, or things I do not understand. All of you are afraid of him, not because you truly think he's evil, but because you don't understand what he is. What kind of Christian spirit is this? Would you do this to someone who has cancer? No, you would help them because they have a horrible disease. What makes him so different? Do you think he revels in what he's become? I'm not playing around. You, go untie him.
Come on, let's go.
Shame on you all.
Alright, there's a lot there. So Chloe saved Aurelius, and she shot this dude, and she has AIDS. So now, I bet you're thinking to yourself, wait, how did Chloe get AIDS, right? Because she's such a good Christian girl. She probably hasn't slept with anyone, right? Like, AIDS is an STI, and we all know what that S stands for, but Chloe's a good Christian girl, so was this all a ruse, or is there more to the story? And there's definitely more going on. Aurelius and Chloe go to his house, and Aurelius gets right down to business.
Why didn't you tell me you have AIDS?
It turns out that Chloe went on a mission trip to Africa, and the village that they were in got attacked. Chloe saved a small girl, but they both got cut, and while she was rescuing the little girl, both of their blood got into each other's system, and the little girl had AIDS, and that's how Chloe has AIDS now. So now comes the obvious next step, right? Chloe asks Aurelius to bite her and cure her and give her immortality so that they can spend eternity together and so that she won't have AIDS anymore. And
Won't you please do this for me?
No.
so we're almost done with this movie, but during the final 10 minutes, we watched the class performance of Dracula, and Chloe talks a little bit more to Aurelius about becoming a vampire, and he says, okay, he'll do it this time, and then he bites her, and the movie ends. The Last Vampire on Earth is obviously a cinematic masterpiece. It's covered in the perfect amount of cringe. The line deliveries were all just absolutely amazing. It made me laugh hundreds of times. And despite its obviously low budget, I really genuinely enjoyed watching this movie. I had a great time. I liked this movie. It sucks, but in the most perfect ways possible. And for that, we're gonna give this 10 out of 10 fangs.
That's right. I have eight that is advancing very quickly.
Now, unfortunately, we're going from the highest of highs to the absolute lowest of lows with this next one. We're talking about Beautiful Creatures. This movie reverses the roles of Bella and Edward and swaps out vampires for witches. We mostly follow a guy named Ethan who lives in a tiny town that's obsessed with religion and, for some reason, the American Civil War. The town is founded by a family called the Ravenwoods, but they're mostly just shut-ins now, and all the townspeople are weary about the Ravenwood estate and anyone named Ravenwood. So, one day a girl named Lena Ravenwood shows up and everyone talks behind her back and thinks she's weird, except for Ethan, because he's just a kind-hearted guy, or whatever. Lena gets bullied, and then the glass in the classroom shatters, and somehow this gets Lena suspended while the school does an investigation. Like, for us as an audience, we know that Lena is probably going to have powers or be a mythical creature of some kind, but for the school and for this movie world, she's just a regular girl. So I have no idea why they would suspect her of doing anything in this situation. Like, there's plenty of witnesses that the glass just shattered. I'm giving this too much thought. I gotta turn my brain down. Let's continue. Ethan goes over to Lena's place to make sure that she's okay after being bullied, and then we meet Lena's uncle, who is Jeremy Irons. It's insane that he's in this movie. He invites Ethan in, and they have some tea, and he asks Ethan what his future ambitions are, and Ethan goes on this crazy rant about how he'll probably become an alcoholic and cheat on his future wife, and he goes on for a bit, but it's clear that Jeremy Irons did some kind of spell to get Ethan to go off, and Lena gets mad at him, and then Ethan leaves. Of course, Ethan's not gonna give up on Lena, so he ends up going back over to her house the next day, and then there's this locket. I stopped paying attention for like 5 seconds, and I missed where this locket came from, and I'm not gonna rewatch this movie. This movie does one of my least favorite things that movies that are made after books do, right? It takes so much time to just get going, to start the story, to get things up and running. They want to try and emulate the book, but they don't do the right parts. They decide to take all the time in the world. Like, this movie ended up being over 2 hours long, and it tells maybe 25 minutes worth of a story. It drove me crazy. I had such a hard time paying attention to this one. It's, you know, if you can't tell already, it's not going to get nearly as high of a Fang score as The Last Vampire on Earth. I'll tell you that much. I'll tell you that much right now. But anyway, there's a locket, and when Lena and Ethan both touch the locket, they can see into the past. They can see the Civil War. Everything's coming back to the Civil War. It's so cool. And then Ethan passes out, and he wakes up, and he goes back over to Lena's house, and then he gets stuck in a time loop, and then Lena saves him after this black goop starts climbing all over him, and then he finds out she's a witch. She tells him she's a witch.
Lena, are you a witch?
I mean, calling us witches is like calling the smart kids geeks or the athletes jocks. We prefer the term caster.
She actually doesn't say she's a witch. She says she's a caster because witches are different things. She casts magic, and all of the people like her cast magic, but people have been calling them witches, but they're not witches. They're casters. And not only that, but she hates that she's a caster, and she hates hiding from mortals, and she's super sad about it because she thinks people call her a freak behind her back, and she just wishes that she were normal. And then Ethan swoops in with this wonderful line.
Lena, you're a miracle. Why would you ever want to be normal?
We cut over and see what Jeremy Irons is up to, and he's meeting with this lady named Amma, who is like dating Ethan's dad or something like that. Somehow she and Ethan are really closely acquainted. This was a hard movie to watch, especially at the beginning. Like, it took 40 minutes to have an interesting plot point. This is over 40 minutes into the movie right here, and so little has happened. I apologize for nothing. Amma can talk to the dead, and the dead say that something is coming to town that can't be stopped, and Ethan and Lena are in the middle of it all, because of course they are, right? So Lena is going to be turning 16 soon, and that starts off the plot of what's actually going to be going on. Apparently, when a caster turns 16, they go through a trial that makes their power either be claimed by the light or the darkness. And Jeremy Irons was a darkness-powered guy, but he chose then to become a light-powered guy for Lena's sake. So why is this a big deal, you ask? Well,
He can choose, then why can't you?
They say that a female caster's true nature chooses for her.
yeah, so women casters don't get a choice. They just don't get a choice. This next bit, I'm just gonna sum it all up for you. It was really long and it didn't convey a whole lot. There's an evil caster named Serafina who turns out to be Jeremy Irons' sister and Lena's mother, I guess as well. And she wants Lena to become evil because Lena's birthday happens to be on a solstice, and she'll get a ton of power, and that will make her super strong, and then Lena will be able to lead all of the evil casters, and they won't have to hide anymore, because she'll be really, really strong. And the evil casters are all sick and tired of hiding. Like, I feel like any tiny, minute amount of power, like anyone who actually had magical powers, they wouldn't actually ever have to hide. Like, people would start persecuting them and stuff, and then they just, turn them into a frog. They, turn them into a pile of goop. And what are they gonna do? And then everyone would probably just end up making religions around them and praising them. I don't know. Serafina wants Lena to be evil. That's what this comes down to. One day, a lady named Ridley goes to the school and she smooches on Ethan and then takes him to Lena's house. And it turns out that she's a relative of Lena, and a bunch of Lena's family are going over to their house right now to celebrate her sweet 16. And of course, when she shows up, no one's happy that Ridley's there. And Ethan is under some weird kind of spell. It turns his eyes a little bit red and he can't talk or move or do anything like that. And of course, it turns out that Ridley is a dark caster and she wants Lena to also become a dark caster. And then Lena and Ridley, they get into a fight. And they just spin the table around, and then they spin around the table, and that's the fight. It goes on for like 5 full minutes, just the table spinning and Lena and Ridley spinning around, and then Lena screams really hard, and she wins the fight, I guess.
I said get away from my boyfriend, you witch.
So after all that, Ethan takes Lena to the movies, and they decide that they don't want to watch the movie, and instead they play with the little pendant that we saw earlier, and when they both touch it, they see a vision of the Civil War, and we learn that there was some evil witch named Genevieve, and she's Lena's ancestor, and Lena has dark magic in her blood because Genevieve brought her love of her life back to life, and that's a taboo magic. You're not supposed to do that, so there's a curse on Lena's bloodline that makes it so that all of the female casters end up choosing the dark side. So Ethan and Lena end up going over to Amma's place, and it turns out that Amma is like some secret keeper of a caster library, and they go down into this library, and Amma says that she's sure that there's a way for them to break the curse here, and then Lena gets chosen by this moon book, and apparently the book chooses who can read it, and the answer to how to break the curse should be in there somewhere. And then just to make the movie a little bit longer, there's a reading montage. There's a whole montage of reading, and in the movie time, it takes months. I think they're reading this thing for like 2 full months, and it shows every freaking minute of it, I swear. Of course, in the end, Lena finds out that the only way to break the curse is to have the person that she loves end up dying to pay for her ancestor's sin, and she's really mad about it, so instead of killing him, she kisses him and then takes away his memory.
Lena Duquesne? Why would I invite Lena Duquesne over for dinner? I barely know her. She doesn't speak to anybody at school.
So now comes the town's annual Civil War reenactment, and it also just so happens to be Lena's birthday, so it's all coming together. Ethan ends up getting shot in the reenactment, but the evil witches put a real bullet in the fake gun, so he actually gets shot, and then Lena feels it somehow, and she runs onto the battlefield, and Lena gets all mad, and she makes a storm show up, and then Jeremy Irons reveals that he was glamored up to look like Ethan, and it was actually him that ends up dying, and since Lena loves him as well as Ethan, it breaks the curse. The curse is no more. Now Lena's all mad again, and she takes away the moon. she takes away the moon, because the moon is what forces casters to choose either the light magic or the dark magic, but she has so much power that she just takes the moon away so that she never has to choose. And then she uses the force on an evil spirit witch, and she turns her into vines, and then we skip ahead to 6 months later, and Ethan suddenly remembers Lena, and the movie ends. The end. It took 2 hours to get here, and it was way too long. Obviously, I didn't really enjoy Beautiful Creatures. I think it was far too long. I think that's really the main issue that I have with this movie. Otherwise, it's kind of a cookie cutter story. There's nothing super significant about it. It builds a world okay. The witch premise was kind of fun. And then it's a Twilight clone. It's all about this relationship between a normal person and someone with, abnormal abilities. It was fine. But it was so long. It was way too long. It told the story slowly. It wasn't concise at all. And because of that, I just kept on losing focus. I kept on just feeling every second of this movie. Anyway, we're going to give this one 2 out of 10 fangs. I don't recommend this one. Don't watch this movie. It's a waste of time. Alright, so the last movie that we're going to be talking about, it's called Fallen. And this one takes the twist of vampires from Twilight and instead makes it angels. And the big thing that this movie had that the other two really didn't is a crazy love triangle. Ooh, it's so nuts. Who's she gonna choose? So Fallen starts with this opening monologue about the creation of man, the Bible story where Satan rebels against God, and then all of the angels end up choosing a side of God or the devil. Well, it turns out that there's a third group, the neutral group, and one angel in particular ends up choosing human love over all of the angel issues. And because he didn't choose the side of God or the devil, God threw all of the neutral angels down to earth, and they're all called Fallens. So that's this movie. They're fallen angels. The main character is this girl named Lucinda, and she goes to Hogwarts, but instead of doing magic, it's just for people who are kind of crazy. While Lucinda is getting a briefing on what this school is all about, we learn that she sees these hallucinations that she calls shadows, and she's just fine with seeing them for some reason, and she just wants to be herself, no matter what, even if she's a little crazy.
Even if it means being locked up, I'd rather be me than pretend to be something I'm not just to fit in.
So right off the bat, Lucinda starts to notice that there's a ton of hot boys at this school, and I didn't learn any of their names. So the only two that really matter are, we're going to call them Good Hot Boy and Bad Hot Boy, and you'll see why as the movie goes on. Although Bad Hot Boy kind of ends up still being good, but he's bad, He's the bad guy. Oh no, that's so stupid. That's so stupid, I gotta cut that. The only other two characters that really have any impact in this movie are the teacher, who we find out is also a fallen angel. Oh yeah, I gotta tell you, everyone in the school is a fallen angel. Like 9 out of 10 people are gonna end up being these fallen angels. There's this whole posse of fallens. Both the hot boys are fallens. The teacher is a fallen. Everyone's a fallen. And it turns out that Good Hot Boy is the initial rebel that made all of the fallen fall. So the only other two characters other than the hot boys and Lucinda that actually matter are the teacher and Lucinda's roommate, whose name is Penn. And neither of them have a huge impact on the story. They're there. They have small ripples that sort of affect things, but mostly it's really just a story about Good Hot Boy and Bad Hot Boy and Lucinda. And then this is another movie that we gotta have flashbacks for some reason. We gotta see centuries in the past. And it turns out that Lucinda and Good Hot Boy have had this eternal relationship. But every time that Good Hot Boy kisses Lucinda, she dies shortly after. She's got some kind of a weird curse on her, and I wonder if there's more going on. It's actually super unclear if there's a curse or if it's like one of the other Fallens. I think it's another Fallen that is killing Lucinda, because that Fallen doesn't want to become an angel again, because if Good Hot Boy falls in love and finds love, then everyone gets to rise back up to heaven or something like that. So throughout these eons, the bad hot boy has also ended up falling in love with Lucinda, and this time he's real gung-ho about being the one who gets Lucinda's love in return. Because if he's able to do that, then she won't continue to die, because she'll fall in love with him instead of Good Hot Boy, and then the curse or whatever's happening will not happen to Lucinda this time. So he wants her love because he actually does fall in love with her, and they end up smooching a lot. In fact, Bad Hot Boy and Lucinda actually have a really decent relationship in this movie. Like, there's a lot of groundwork that's placed, there's a lot of character development between them that happens, and it's a fairly believable relationship. And then about halfway through the movie, she just cuts all ties with him. She sees a drawing that Good Hot Boy is doing, and it's a drawing of her from the past, and she's like, oh my gosh, that means that I used to be your love. And he's like, yeah, it's true. And from that point on, they're just in love again. Like, it just happens. There's nothing that led up to it. It just happens. So now Bad Hot Boy's all pissed off at Good Hot Boy because he knows that if Good Hot Boy is going to kiss Lucinda, then that curse or whatever is going to end up killing her. So he gets all mad, and then things happen, and we're skipping forward a little bit until Good Hot Boy and Bad Hot Boy finally have their big confrontation, and they finally end up fighting. They both sprout their really cool wings, and they begin duking it out in the sky, and lightning is flashing, and it was so hard to watch. The amount of flashing lights, the lightning, the wings, every time they clash, it does a little flash. It was really, really difficult to watch. It was hard to comprehend what was going on. Fortunately for Lucinda, she's left on the ground, and the teacher's like, oh, don't worry, I'll help you out. And so the teacher takes Lucinda inside while the two hot boys are fighting in the sky. But oh no, crazy plot twist time. It turns out that the teacher is evil, and the teacher's been the one who has, I think, been killing Lucinda this whole time. And the teacher kills Penn, who's Lucinda's roommate, and so Lucinda gets all sad about it, and the teacher says that she's been killing Lucinda for years and years and years, for generations and generations, because she wants to force Good Hot Boy to choose heaven over love so that he can go back up to heaven and be like God's champion or something like that. I don't know, man. It turns out Penn doesn't actually die because the angels end up taking her and healing her, and Good Hot Boy swoops down and he grabs Lucinda because now the teacher or the curse is going to be trying to kill Lucinda because Good Hot Boy and Lucinda ended up kissing, and Good Hot Boy's all like, don't worry, I've got a safe place that I can take her. And then he swoops her up and he flies away, and the movie ends. It just ends, just out of nowhere. It was so abrupt. It made me laugh. It was a really sudden ending, and this movie thought they were gonna be getting a sequel, I guarantee it, and I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think this movie did very good, but yeah, that was Fallen. I don't know if it's because I'm coming off of watching Beautiful Creatures to this one, but I actually liked Fallen a lot more than I expected I was going to. For one, it was only 90 minutes long, which is like the perfect length for this kind of movie. It means that it had to get everything established and start the story off really, really quick, so everything was constantly moving. There was a lot in the middle that kind of either jumbled together a lot or kind of skipped forward past large sections. Like I said, with like the Good Hot Boy's relationship with Lucinda, like that didn't really grow at all. It just was assumed to be believable, and they just rolled with it, and whatever. I'd rather have that happen than have this movie be another half hour plus long and just slowly suck my soul out. So thank you, Fallen. Thank you. All in all, we're going to go ahead and give Fallen 5 out of 10 fangs. And you know what? We're going to give it a bonus fang for not being Beautiful Creatures. So there you go. 3 Twilight clones. We got one of them that I loved, one of them that I hated, and one of them that's right in the middle. You know, I couldn't have done this better if I planned, I guess. I didn't I didn't plan on having one that I hated and one that I was kind of indifferent about. I really didn't. I knew I was gonna do Last Vampire on Earth, because the second I saw that movie, I knew I needed to spread the word. I needed to spread the good word of The Last Vampire on Earth. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on these movies or other Twilight clones that I could maybe watch and do a part 2 to this video in the future. As always, if you had a good time, don't forget to like and subscribe, and a huge thanks for the extra support from my YouTube members. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and if you had a good time, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and share and do that whole thing. But, you know, until next time, you all stay safe out there and happy watching. Bye-bye.